Welcome back, everybody. Happy Monday. Hopefully you enjoyed your week off and your Memorial Day treated you well. We missed you while we were gone, but, we wanted to pay respect and let everybody enjoy time off with their family. And we wanted to honor those that deserved that holiday. So we took the night off. We obviously came back with a bang Tuesday night and Wednesday night, had some fun stuff happen. If you haven't checked that out already, our game show where Josh and I came in dead last, even though we should have won, but Kraig and Tim took the gold. All of that's over there on YouTube. It is over here on YouTube, depending on where you're watching. It was a good time, so make sure to go check that out. Show some love to the guys from Front Yard Fantasy as well. We had a great week with them last week. But tonight, we're back to talking IDP. It's going to be a blast tonight. We're talking rookie safeties. I think it's rookie safeties tonight. So it's going to be a fun night tonight. Kraig, how are you tonight, man?
I am tired. For whatever reason, I woke up early after going to bed late. Work today, and then swim lessons started for the kids. So chasing the youngest one around outside, trying to keep her out of the pool while the older three were in the pool is always fun. But it's good to get them outside and get them tired out, although they're still not in bed. Never seems to work that way. But glad to be here tonight discussing safeties.
Yeah, I hear you. Our swim lessons start tomorrow. We start swim and gymnastics to try to keep them tired, seeing as, dad works all day, sits at home. They're at home with me while the wife goes out to work. It's just, I'm trying to find ways to keep them using their energy and having fun and doing some of those things while holding down day jobs, plural.
Yep.
So I hear you. And I hear footsteps above me, so I know they're not all completely sleeping yet either, so you're not alone. So we have a little bit of news and notes, and we have some fun stuff to talk about. So take it away. Let's talk about what's going on in the world of fantasy and fantasy football.
Yeah, so since the last time we had a show, there's been a few signings that were not rookie-related. Darquez Dennard signed with the Cardinals. Tony Jefferson signed with the 49ers. And good old Rashad Breeland signed with the Vikings, so that's a good one for Sully. Those are the only real sort of names. There's been some other moves. I think Brian Price signed with your Lions, which I know got you all excited as another kneecap biter there in the trenches for you. But those guys are really only going to be, especially Dennard and then Breeland, relevant if you play in a deep cornerback required league. Tony Jefferson, we'll see. He probably does not end up starting. He'd be second unit at best, I think, probably for the 49ers if healthy, although they've had health issues in the secondary. So who knows? No big names, nothing crazy, but those are the three sort of names that people would recognize. Any thoughts on any of those, Brad?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can, if you're in a cornerback specific league, you might keep tabs on Breeland. I don't know that I'm super intrigued. Jefferson, I think, is one that you can keep on your watch list if you use MFL. I mean, neither one of these guys I'm jumping all over, but it never hurts to keep tabs on them for sure. You never know in a pinch if you're going to need to swoop one up off the waiver wire and throw them in your lineups. But, in the beginning of June, no, it doesn't matter.
And that was really it. Most of it's just, rookie-centric right now. So you're going to see the occasional veteran here sign, and there'll probably be one or two that go into a starting spot that you might want to consider. But like Brad said, I think by and large, it's just going to be guys to keep an eye on. And then more interesting news, I think Sleeper, everyone's new favorite hot app for fantasy football starting last year. Mm-hmm. And yes, I know not everyone enjoys it, but I do enjoy them myself. I came around to them in the past year, and their willingness to make changes and changes quickly by and large, I am a big fan of, and hopefully that spurs more apps in general to do the same. But they had a poll out 2 days ago to IDP players, and I'm going to read it off here. We're thinking of making all edge rushers defensive line eligible for the 2021 NFL season by giving them both the defensive end tag and linebacker tag. Thoughts? And so there's 4 days left. So sorry, over the past 2 days they've had about 1,800 votes. 72.9% say yes, make the change. 27.1 say no, don't like it. And then yesterday they had what they're calling complete list of proposed changes. So you could go to that link. It's one of the top things if you go visit Sleeper on Twitter, and it lists, the player name, their current tag, recommended tag, notes, primary on-field role, that sort of thing. And there wasn't a poll associated with that one, but you can kind of see where they were going with it. And I'm sorry, they do have a poll under that. For yes, make the change now. Yes, but change in 2022. No, hate it. And they have the addendum. Like most league changes, we want to see a really high percentage, 90% plus, in agreement for the change to happen this year. And the secondary vote of whether to change it now, you hate it, or change it next year, only has about 400 votes. So if you play IDP, go check out Sleeper on there, and they'll give your input one way or the other.
Yep. Absolutely.
So I will, in the spirit of complete transparency, I voted no with the initial one because to me, it just blurs the line even more, and it doesn't give that sort of clear-cut rule on how they're doing this. With the proposed changes they have listed in there, you're going to have people that are what's considered that edge, that 4-3 defensive end, and then the 3-4 outside linebacker. They're not having equity across those positions. It seems like they're cherry-picking who they think this applies to and who it doesn't, and we know that's going to change. It's not going to stay the way that we think it is now. And you're always going to be able to blur the lines and make an argument, well, this person should be included, this person shouldn't. So for me, you should have more clarity, unless you're going to have a team of people constantly updating these throughout the year to what the team is actually doing. I don't like it. I like just the more clear-cut sort of rule. That way you're not having to have people dive into, percents of snaps played over the course of the year or, from the prior year to make these changes. I get where they're going with it. And in a perfect world, maybe there is just this special edge position where if you're splitting time between the two really truly about evenly, they're just a separate edge guy. But, you're not breaking down most of these leagues, especially on Sleeper, the defensive line positions and then the linebacker position. So if you're making this sort of third position, I think we need to have a broader spectrum of people we're applying it to.
Yeah, I mean, I voted yes just because I like to make changes. I'm all about change.
Fair.
But I like both sides of the equation. I think it's smart to not throw people too far, and especially, for anybody who's been on Flea Flicker, you're comfortable understanding what edge looks like, but this is a little different of a dynamic, and I'm perfectly fine either way. I don't think that they make the change this year just because there's not enough buy-in. I mean, I showed the screen while we were talking about it. It's like 72% right now are on the yes side of it. I don't think that's enough for them to make a big change for this season. But it's nice to see the companies are starting to move that direction. I think I tagged maybe MFL or somebody on, making the change to that on MFL, because MFL's the biggest fantasy platform out there as far as I'm aware of. Last time I looked at market share, they need to make that. They need to really look into making changes and being more flexible like a Sleeper. I think Sleeper is quickly going to become, kind of the big fish when it comes to people buying into it from a new perspective, because they're so willing to make these changes. Flea Flicker, I just don't know. Like, it's okay. I definitely don't mind it. I just don't know that it's ever going to be able to keep doing what Sleeper's doing. I think Sleeper's really on top of things, and they're doing a great job. So, but ultimately, I don't think this changes this year. I wouldn't think, unless we get lucky.
Yeah, I like the way that they're moving, with going towards this direction. But some of these different guys that are on this list, they're giving someone like Harold Landry defensive line, linebacker eligibility, where, he didn't play as a defensive end hardly at all. So, when you're giving that to him, but not someone like TJ Watt, which I view in a similar vein, I just don't understand the differentiation between the two.
Right. Now there needs to be a bigger conversation, I think, if they do it, and they probably should. They would be smart to poll the community and have a deeper conversation about it, or just go to Flea Flicker. I think Flea Flicker's done a good job deploying the edge position. Like I haven't really noticed anything where I thought they were kind of egregious in how they used it. So
yeah, I mean, this seems like it's more of a, at least the way it's being portrayed right now, more of a, we're giving dual eligibility to a ton of different people. And I think that's going to create more inequity, where if you just made an edge position like Flea Flicker did, to your point, it's going to be better that way. That way you can have all of these guys grouped together and sort of do the same thing as their own position if you choose to, go away from the standard defensive back, linebacker, defensive line.
Absolutely. So there's that. Hopefully you guys all that check this out at some point over the next few days, go check it out. Go post your comments there. Sleeper does a great job interacting with the community on Twitter. So go over there, cast your vote, be a part of the conversation, and and let's help continue to make positive IDP change for fantasy, because these conversations are important to have. IDP is growing. It may not be the new hotness, but it's definitely a style of league that is growing. And I always tell people that are unsure to just give it a try, because you really do enjoy it if you get into it. I haven't talked to anybody who's jumped into like, oh, this is terrible, I quit. Like, no, they enjoy it as long as you balance the scoring and you don't make it too crazy. I've not had any problems getting people to adopt IDP in my fantasy leagues.
Yeah, and there's always going to be people that won't. I mean, it's like anything else,
right,
which is fine. But I am an advocate in fantasy football of try it. You just might like it. But that also applies to kids if you watch Daniel Tiger. So.
Yeah, very true. I think right now we're, I have all girls, so it's a lot of fairly girly shows, but I don't like them. I tried them.
Well, you tried it though, so there you got that.
All right, so tonight we're going to be talking rookie safeties. Most of you have all either in the process of or have done your rookie drafts. Hopefully you've been going to rotoheat.com. I'm going to post over here that direction. I'm going to put it up on the screen, our site with our rankings. You can see exactly who Kraig and I have at which position. The cool thing about our site is we have it so that you can kind of break it down by position group. You can even go by team. So if you have questions or you want to see what we're seeing and what we do, these are our rankings. They're up to date. We have access to being able to update them regularly. But we do want to note that some of these guys are kind of in the midst of possibly changing to a potential linebacker type role. So the conversations right now, we've got, like Hamza Nasir-Ladin, we've got him listed as a safety. That could change, but I wanted to put that out there before we get going. Right now I have it sorted so that you see Kraig's top guys in order, and we'll just start that conversation with Richie Grant. Kraig, take it away and let us know why you love him as your top safety. Uh-oh, I think you're muted.
Hello. Is that better?
That's perfect.
Yeah, sorry. So Richie Grant, and I've been sort of going back and forth between him and Holland since the draft. I did have Holland pre-draft as my one, and I know that Holland went first as far as any of the safeties in the draft. And I still do like him. As you can see, I have him as my second-rated safety on the board here. I think that with the level of play that you're going to see in the secondary pieces surrounding Holland, he's going to have a little bit less opportunity to get you those IDP points, which is why I have him lower. The secondary for the Falcons is a mess. That defense as a whole, by and large, they have a couple nice linebackers there, but still just not impressive to me. And I think that secondary is going to have a lot of opportunities there, with Grant being, the main guy out of the safety position, and he can play all over the field. So we're going to have to see how they go about utilizing him. But in terms of opportunity, that's really the difference between the two of them. I like the talent of both of them a lot. Like I said, I still have Holland as, if you're talking about real life, who's going to be the better player. I'd give Holland the nod, a little bit over Grant. But, to me, it really is sort of splitting hairs between the two of them. And I know you sort of have it flip-flopped. You have them both higher than I do overall, but you still have both of them up there.
Right. Yeah. Richie Grant fell into a really great situation. I think he could step in and be kind of their free safety of the future and be on the field early. When I was, and I would have to look specifically at my notes, but the things that stood out to me with Grant is he did a good job processing, but there were times where I felt like it needed to move up a little bit and he get it a little bit quicker at how he read what was going on in the offense and some of those things. But I think the way that he gets used and his athletic ability and just his style of play, like I thought it transitioned really well to the next level. And I think Atlanta's a good spot for him. When it came to draft position, and how I rank these guys, ultimately, and if we did a hot take show, my hot take would be is if Trevon Mora gets on the field for the Raiders, he could be safety one in this class because going into the draft, he was my favorite safety, but then he went to the place that drafted 700 safeties and now we're trying to convert half of them to linebacker. I have no idea what they're doing with their secondary. So if Mora gets on the field and is kind of a starter at the position, I think he could really jump up here. But Richie Grant, Holland, Cisco, I think all these guys are really talented. All four of these guys should be targeted in your drafts. And I think you'll be happy with all of them in the end because I think they not only fell to good spots, but they're all very talented individuals.
Yeah, and the only thing that, could end up being sort of a hindrance to IDP production is most of these guys near the top that we're talking about, the top three anyway, as far as safety, there's a good chance they're going to end up as free safeties, although, like we said, they are, especially Grant and Holland are sort of interchangeable. Holland showed he can play in the slot really well, too, which can get him on the field sort of as a fourth potential cornerback or if someone gets hurt. So I think he will be on the field, too, but they're just sort of stacked at the cornerback position. And, with how good those guys are, I think that's going to eat into his production a bit.
Absolutely. And so Holland would, looking at these rankings, obviously Holland must be my one.
Yep.
Because I haven't sorted by you. I'm now looking at the numbers. Okay, there we go. So Holland, the thing I liked about him, not only did he have, just like, all these guys at the top are all 6 foot, 6'1", all brought a really nice size, speed profile. The thing I liked about him was, he could do a lot of different things. His versatility and his football intelligence, I thought were probably some of the better in the class at safety, at least coming into the league. He projected in my mind as one of the guys that, between him and Mulrig, they were both the two guys that were at the top of my list going into draft weekend. He does a good job being able to read what's going on in the offense. He does a good job helping other guys. If you watched Oregon games, you would watch Holland line up other guys on the defense. He seemed as though he had a very good grasp on what was going on, and he was a smart player. And I thought that would project well. And his landing spot, I think, was perfect for it. And then they went and moved on from their starter from last year. They cut him shortly after the draft. It was like, okay, they're probably primed to let this kid get some early action in this young developing defense like this. I'm feeling very good about this. And I think in all the IDP leagues I've done so far, draft wise, I think I've gotten a few shares of Holland. And if I don't own a share, I've tried to trade for a share because I really do like the player long term. I think this is a great spot. Miami's making all the right decisions, and he fits in perfect with what they're doing.
Yeah, I love the fit from real life NFL position. Just in terms of fantasy, I like Grant's positioning better to get your points right away. So.
You could be right. Absolutely. Atlanta's with the Julio trade, Atlanta's going to be their defense is going to be on the field a little bit more. I don't care what anyone says. You've got two viable receiving options, and then Russell Gage would be your third option. Your defense is going to need to be on the field. So Grant should probably get you, when you look between them and Miami's offense, Atlanta's offense now doesn't look as good, at least in my mind.
Alrighty. So we both have the same number 3 guy on there. You at 9, myself at 11. And he was one of my favorite guys going into this, just in terms of he actually went higher than I thought he would, which made me feel even better about it. But Ardarius Cisco to the Jaguars. The Jaguars have another defense which I'm going to sort of liken to Atlanta, where, they have some nice pieces, but they need to put it together. And so far it just, hasn't shown up, especially in that secondary. So, they have Henderson from last year. They have Shaq Griffin they signed. Herndon did all right, drafted Tyson Campbell in the second. So you have a very young secondary with a lot of guys that are going to be vying for playing time and trying to get on the field. With Cisco going in the third round, I think there's a very good chance he ends up starting for them, probably at free safety, because that's how he's made. Again, you're not going to usually see as many tackles out of your free safety, but if you see one thing out of this guy on tape, he's just a ball hawk. I mean, he just is a pure turnover machine in his time at Syracuse. And I love seeing that. I'm not comparing the two of them otherwise, but the last guy that I saw that really reminded me of that was the Honey Badger. He was out there making plays. He was getting the ball for his team. And I love seeing that, especially, you have to know your league like we tell you all the time on here, especially for the IDP scoring. But, man, when you have a guy that gets you those, even if it's a more tackle-heavy league where you get 2 per tackle or something, those big plays matter, whether it's a fumble recovery, forced fumble, interception especially, and he knows how to get them for you.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Jacksonville deploys this defense with the new staff. The defensive coordinator, Joe Cullen. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they do. The defense is young and developing. I mean, they have, 3 or 4 first-round picks along that defensive line. They've got, obviously Miles Jack, which from an IDP perspective, whatever, but him and Joe Schobert, they've got CJ Henderson, who they drafted last year in the first round, and then Tyson Campbell and Cisco, who they brought in this year. I mean, the defense is young and full of higher draft capital players. If Cullen can put this together, Cisco stands to be very relevant, because when you look at the secondary, when it comes to safeties, Cisco's their most talented, and he's had no experience in the NFL level. I mean, they got the kid from they got Andrew Wingard, and they got the kid from Philadelphia, Ford. I think Rudy Ford. His name. Yeah, Rudy Ford. So Cisco should have no problems injecting himself in that starting lineup. And I think with how the thing that best suits him is allowing him to just kind of, freelance, if you will, allow him to use his ball hawking ability, like you've already talked about, to make plays in the back end, because they're going to get challenged. It's a young secondary. Teams are going to try to throw the ball on him. If Cisco can use that ball hawking ability to go up and make some plays from an IDP perspective, I mean, he could be a bit, he's kind of one of those on a week-to-week basis that could be a boom bust, where you're getting big weeks because he gets an interception or, a bunch of pass breakups or something, because he's able to use that ability to freelance. Or he's, it's kind of feast or famine. If he's not getting a lot of tackles, then, that's a tough situation he's in. But I like the player. I like the spot. I don't know that I trust the coaching staff to develop people, but we'll see. And that's going to be the biggest thing, is can they put these guys in a place to be successful? Is he get to be that single high safety and use his ball hawking skills to better benefit himself and the team?
Yeah, the real monkey wrench thrown into all of this is, before the draft, they went out and they signed Rayshon Jenkins from the Chargers, and they gave him a good chunk of money. I think it was 4 years, like $35 million. With like $15 million guaranteed, and he played all over the field. I think it was like he split his snaps like 50-50 when he played safety at which one he was going to be at. So are they turning him into a strong safety where they're going to have him in the box more? Because Cisco doesn't really seem to fit that. But with the money that they're paying him, Jenkins is going to start somewhere for him, I have to think. So
I would agree. It wouldn't surprise me if Jenkins and Cisco are the guys and they just kind of bounce them around. Because look at how many teams are starting to deploy 3 and 4 safeties on a regular basis to stop these very mobile quarterbacks. And, and especially in the division they're in, they won't have Deshaun to have to deal with, but, you still have some mobile quarterbacks, and they need that ability to deploy multiple safeties. And also the fact that their cornerback group is not deep. So, it'll be interesting to see how they deploy these guys. And the best talented players should be on the field, and Cisco's one of the better ones on that team.
Number 4, we have 2 spots off of each other as well, which you mentioned already. The Raiders' new safety, Trevon Mulrig. I have him at 19. You have him at 21, and I know we spoke on him a little bit. Just a mess of a Raiders team, but it seems like after the first year with Gruden there, when people were sort of hyped and things started off all right, it's just been a mess ever since. I think their defense, certainly their defensive line is better, I think, because they're going to have Crosby and Farrell like before, but they have Yannick Ngakoue there. I like some of the interior guys that they signed. Linebackers, Mora played really well for him, although he didn't play as much. Littleton may be a complete bust playing for the Raiders, we'll have to say, and Kwiatkowski played well when he was healthy. But I think we're going to talk about these two guys together. You can sort of see where they are. Brad has Divine Diablo down at 43, which should be his 11th rated safety. And I have Diablo up at 25, and we didn't really talk about this. It's one of those things where, sort of like our discussion with the edge guys, you have to know the platform and then how these guys are going to be used. Because it sounds like Mulrig is probably going to be a safety, and he really is one of those interchangeable starting safeties. He's probably, I have to imagine he's going to start, and he's probably going to be starting at free safety for him because Abram is more your strong safety mold, assuming he's healthy again. So, got to throw that in there. But they drafted Diablo, I think it was in the 3rd round here, and they're using him as a linebacker. So if he were to end up starting somehow and you have that safety eligibility, I think he could be a really nice player for you this year. Now, again, there's that caveat because usually it takes a year or so, maybe not even anymore. Maybe they'll do these in season on more platforms, like it sounds like maybe Sleeper's looking at. If he's playing linebacker more and he loses that eligibility, I don't like it as much. But if it's sort of like we saw with Jeremy Chin, if you're having someone play that hybrid and you can stick him at safety, I mean, that's just great for getting you points. So that's why I have Diablo as high as I do, because that's how they've been using him in camp. But in reality, he probably ends up being a linebacker more than a safety. So you don't want to be banking on having that long-term positional variancy for him.
Well, and Diablo's an interesting player because if you looked at some of the scouting services pre-draft, some of them put him as kind of that dime linebacker role, because he's like 6'3", like just under 230, I believe. Yeah, he's a big dude, and he was a converted receiver, so he's got some speed to his game. Like, I think because Virginia Tech used him all over the field, I think teams try to figure out, okay, what do we do with him if we don't just have him specifically play safety? Because, I mean, we had the same conversation with Isaiah Simmons last year. What do you do with a big physical athlete, that does a really good job getting sideline to sideline? I mean, Diablo's the same. He's not the same athlete as Isaiah Simmons, but in the same mold. So if the Raiders, right now, if you look at sites like Ourlads or some of those that are projecting depth charts, he's sitting behind Corey Littleton. So it almost feels like, okay, maybe they rotate some snaps at linebacker. And if Littleton really isn't panning out, well, they have a cheaper linebacking option that was a higher draft pick. There you go. He's kind of the next linebacker. That's fine if they want to do that. I mean, the struggle I have with Diablo is he wasn't the most sure tackler at Virginia Tech, but remember, being a converted wide receiver, he's still learning the nuances of the position, so tackling angles and wrapping up and all that. I mean, that takes time to really get it down. So cautiously optimistic. I'm not jumping all over him anytime soon. And quite honestly, unless you have super deep IDP, I would let Diablo just sit on the free agent market unless something happens where he's thrust into a starting position. Mulrig, on the other hand, I mean, they're already projecting him as the starting safety next to Jonathan Abrams. So that's a cool combination. I mean, because that's thunder and lightning right there, because Abraham will try to take your head off and Mulrig can do it all.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, if you're looking at guys that you have the known potential right now for starting on your fantasy team this year, it's the top 4 guys. I mean, anyone after Mulrig, I don't think you're going to be starting in an IDP league or most IDP leagues, because I don't think most of these guys after them are going to be starting. And if they do, it's because of injury later on. So, everyone that you see on our list below Mulrig at 4, you're probably going to be looking at something for the future. And, even once we get down to, 9, 10, 8, somewhere in there. I mean, these are deep stash guys. I like the top of the safety class. It's just not that deep in my opinion. So
Absolutely.
You're next. Good old Florida State guy.
Hamza. He's an interesting player. I really liked him a lot coming out. I left him where I had him just because I really like the player. I don't really know how I feel long term about him in the situation he's in. So what I like about the player is I think because of his size, speed, profile, I think you could have the same type of conversation with him that you did Diablo, where you use him in a lot of different positions. The thing that I like about Hamza is he's a much better tackler. And I like the position he's in with the Jets in the sense that if they're using him as a foundational piece of this team and really building around him as part of the core of this team, then they'll know what to do with him. And I trust that, Robert Saleh will know what to do with him. They've got him right now kind of pegged in as another outside linebacker. And if that's the case, they don't have a lot there with the Jets. So he could work himself into this. He could work himself into playing time earlier than some of the other guys, and probably even earlier than a guy like we just talked about with Diablo, because when you look at the Jets, I was just pulling up their depth chart. Blake Cashman, Kyle Phillips, Gerard Davis, and then CJ Mosley coming back. Like Mosley, solid. Gerard Davis, they'll give a chance, but who's the guy after that? I mean, you could Cashman, probably, maybe Phillips, but it's not a strong linebacking core, and they're still trying to rebuild that. So, if Hamza can pick up the nuances and really hit the ground running, he's a strong tackler. I think he's very good with being able to back off and maybe kind of bounce out and play in coverage because he's been playing in the secondary for the Seminoles. So I'm intrigued by him. I didn't project him fitting with the Jets and their style, but them using him at linebackers kind of got me going, okay, maybe.
I have two concerns, I guess, not my only, but my two concerns are sort of melded together. One, like you said, the positional change, and you combine that with draft capital. Third round for Diablo is a large difference to I think it was 6th round here for Hamza.
Yep.
Yeah, it was the 6th round. So that concerns me. Did he fall because he was having a hard time recovering from injury, things like that? But then you throw in that they're trying to do the same thing, they being the Jets, with the other guy, Jamian Sherwood. That's another college safety that they're turning into linebacker that they took around earlier. Now, I don't have all these memorized here, but he was in the 5th round. So, a round ahead of him, it's another guy that they're doing the same thing with. So there's that immediate competition. Yeah, it's only slight draft capital, but clearly they like one initially more than the other. Sherwood is slower, which, may be part of the reason that they're, looking at moving him. I think you're in like a 4.65 or something like that at the combine. But, he's another guy sort of similar. He knows how to tackle. He can play coverage. How are these guys going to adapt? I like the coach there. I like that he's experimenting with this, and they're trying to find something to do at those outside linebacker positions. That's why I have the two of them close. I have Hamza at 37 and Sherwood at 43. It's not that big of a difference. And my two safeties right next to each other. Despite that draft capital, I do like Hamza as a player better. But like I just mentioned, to me, once you're in this range, it's sort of a crapshoot where who's your guy? Do you want to go get a stake of him for free, and can you stash him somewhere and hope for the best?
Yep. Yeah, and quite honestly, after the 4, like we talked about, I'm probably not drafting any of these guys unless I have deeper rosters and I can stash them on a taxi squad, because I don't necessarily know. I don't trust that any of them are really going to develop in the first year. So why not let somebody else bite the bullet if they're really that excited to grab them? So Sully asks, is there an Antoine Winfield Jr. in this draft class? So is there a guy that can really jump out and become the next big thing. I would guess any of the top 4 guys, really, quite honestly, could potentially have that type of rookie season. What do you think?
Yeah,
Kraig?
I mean, if we're going for someone that sort of initially had flown under the radar and is going to continue to fly under the radar, but you want to just do a late sort of dart throw, a guy that is similar in size, but he went undrafted, so that's a big difference. He's on your list at 10. He's not even on my top 10, but Ardarius Washington, there's a potential if he can earn a spot, first of all, on the roster, but then, eventually starting at free safety for the Ravens, I would like him in that spot. I think he fits well. He was a really well-graded safety in college. He played next to Mulrig. I think he's going to make the team, and I really do think he's going to end up starting for them at some point. His size probably did hurt him. Again, he's like 5'8", 175. But, man, the guy can hit. He played well. He matched up well. It's just a matter of, is he going to be able to pull it out and, perform once they get on the field here at the NFL level. But to your point with the 4 guys that are sort of listed here, I see all of them probably starting this year, and those are just sort of the 4 guys. Last year Winfield was sort of an afterthought once you had McKinney and you had Delpit. After the draft, you had Chin that people were really excited about, even Duggar, although Duggar didn't end up playing. I don't know that you're going to be surprised at any of these guys starting and making an impact where, by and large, it felt like the fantasy community was. We all know I staked my flag on Winfield early on in the pre-draft process even, and I got lucky on that one. But I guess I don't see it this year.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really shoots up just because it wasn't. I think a lot of it was draft slot. So a lot of these guys went to really strange situations or maybe super deep safety situations where I'm just not as confident that they can kind of bust out and really break out even later on in their rookie season. Ardarius Washington I like because when you look at, and I pulled up Baltimore's depth chart, I mean, what's ahead of him? I mean, it's just a bucket
It's
of
Elliott,
yuck,
pretty much.
So yeah, Elliott, and that's it. Some guys that have bounced around the league, and because Ardarius Washington projects as a free safety, but the great thing about Washington is that he's extremely smart. He's had to learn to be very sound in his technique and how he positions himself, because at 5'8", you're taking on guys that are 6 to 7, 8 inches taller and probably, anywhere from 10 to 30, 40 pounds heavier than you. I mean, you're taking on guys that are significantly bigger, so you have to play smarter to be able to win those battles and do what he did at the collegiate level. And he was very successful at TCU. I think he did a great job. Unfortunately, the way this draft fell out, it didn't pan out for him like I thought it might have. I thought he might go a little quite a bit earlier. I thought he was kind of an earlier day 3 type guy potentially, but in the end, I think he has the perfect opportunity to shoot up, because even what's ahead of him was a late round pick. Elliott was taken, I don't know, 6th, 7th, somewhere around there. So he has every opportunity, and you want parts of Baltimore's defense because it's a strong defense. It normally produces some IDP relevant guys.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for someone to sort of have that surprise role that shows up and does more than people sort of expected, you're probably better off looking at cornerback this year. And I know this is probably a cheap comparison, but that was the big thing that I, saw in Winfield, is that you can tell he learned how to play from his dad. Their style of play is very similar. The size is a little bit different, but you could just see he had a nose for, I know where to be, I know what to do. He was a baller, and he showed up. He didn't make an ass of himself in camp. He knew how to be respectful to the guys. And there's some, even if you're not looking at the top guys like Surtain and Horn, farther down the line, Asante Samuel Jr. is going to have a real chance he's going to get targeted this year, and he's going to have a real chance even in regular defensive back leagues to be a viable play. So that's, if you're looking for a comparison that way, I'd probably look at the cornerbacks more so than the safeties.
Mm-hmm. I would not argue that one. So there you go, Sully. Hopefully that helps you out. Again, if you guys have questions, shoot them over in the chat. We will get you up and we will get you on. If you like what you're seeing, if you enjoy the content we've been doing, don't forget, smash that like and subscribe and the notification icon. We do this show every Monday night, barring holidays or unforeseen circumstances. We got a Tuesday night stream this week. We got G-Man Jay from the FYF team. He's going to be on talking. We're going to be doing some hot
He's a
take.
great guest.
Yeah, he's an awesome guy, and he's going to be a hot take machine. We're going to have fun with it tomorrow night. I have to work on my hot takes because I don't just want to spend an hour telling Sully that Pitts is a bust. That may not end well for us.
You don't want him swearing on the stream here, man. You don't need to, well, he's Canadian. He won't swear, but he'll say heck or something.
He'll be throwing Tim Hortons coffees at the screen at me, and I don't want that.
Yeah, Jay will be a great guest. Even though he's a Giants fan, he and I get along. So that'll tell you all you need to know about him. Okay. Well, we have very different 6 guys on our list. So you want to go first?